Now everyone check, guys. Everyone check. Am I audible? Am I audible, guys? Voice is not clear. Full but not clear. Wait a minute. Yeah. Now everyone please check, guys. Stay involved. Yeah. Everyone please check your audio and video. Online students now perfect. Perfect, only good. Yeah. Yeah, tell me. Total how many Spring Bean scopes are there? 6. What's the default one? Singleton. Okay. Singleton means only one object created. This restriction came from class level or container level? Container level. It is per bean class or per bean idea. It's a per bean ID and per bean class together, right? Okay. If I configure same class with as two different Spring Beans, then what happens? As two different Spring Beans, then what happens, guys? Huh? Two different objects will be created because with respect to bean ID only, singleton is creating object for Spring Bean class. Okay, for reusability, singleton scope Spring Bean objects are kept in which place? Internal cache of IOC container. Then we discussed about what? Prototype. So whenever you ask, it will give a new object or not there. So when the scope of, when the state means the data of the Spring Bean is changing time to time, it's better to take the scope as what? Prototype scope. Suppose I'm getting form data and I want to store into Spring Bean class object. I'm getting this form data from multiple end user. End user to end user data will changing, right? In that situation, better to store form data into what? Spring Bean class object whose scope is prototype or not there. Prototype scope means how many times you call ctx.getBean method having bean ID. Those many times Spring Bean class object will be created or not there. Singleton means one object. Prototype scope means how many objects you want, those many objects. Is there any pre-instantiation for prototype scope Spring Bean, guys? Why not there? Or whenever it want it giving new object, why it needs to have a extra object? Is there any need of, if at all extra object is created through pre-instantiation, that will be wasted or not there? Okay, now the question is, what happens if I configure real singleton Java class? What class? As prototype scope Spring Bean. As prototype scope Spring Bean. Singleton behavior will be continued or prototype scope behavior will be continued. Depends. You cannot use single answer. Star symbol. Okay. If we enable factory method bean instantiation where singleton logic is there, singleton behavior will be continued. If you have not enabled it, come on guys. If you have not enabled it, then what happened? Prototype scope behavior will be continued. That's for sure. But okay, now let's see. I'll go to Spring Bean scopes, guys. Here is my yes beans, guys. Not S beans. Yes ton. Printer, my dear. I have taken scope as what? Prototype. Taken pro scope as what? Prototype. Here is my Spring Bean scopes test. Yeah. How many times I am trying to access printer class object? Twice. I'm printing the hash code. Okay. Let's check. Spring Beans scopes test. Okay. We'll press this button. 985. 985. 985. 985. Yeah. 1 minute. I'll tell the reason. Problem is here also PRN1 is there. I'm commenting this. I am commenting this. Right click, tell me, run as Java application 985.234 because static factory method bean instantiation is not enabled. Constructor. Here IOC container is using reflection API to access the private constructor and to create what? Spring Bean class object. So that what happened? Two different objects have come are not there. But when I configure Spring Bean by using @ component annotation, can I enable static factory method bean instantiation? No. That's why I'm commenting scope. I'm also commenting component. I'm commenting scope. I'm also commenting what? Component. Are you getting my point there, guys? I'm commenting component. I'm also commenting what? Scope. Everyone getting my point there or not there? Okay. Here you come to this. @bean name PRN1. Create printer1. Return printer dot get instance. What guys? Printer dot get instance. Okay, here I'm mentioning the scope as what? Prototype. I'm simply mentioning the scope as what, guys? Prototype. Clear, guys? Okay. In this place, Spring Beans scopes, just click on it. How much it has come? 985,985. It's coming or not coming? Because I have enabled static factory method bean instantiation. Those scope is prototype. So what is the answer I have to give? If we enable static factory method bean instantiation on Spring Bean, the singleton behavior will continue. If you don't enable it, since IOC container can access private constructor of Spring Bean and can create any number of objects, that means singleton behavior will not be continued. This is the solid answer that you have to give. Let's see, guys. Paint. File, open this. Where is this? 719. More on Spring Bean scopes. Session 21. What happens if we configure real singleton Java class as what? Prototype scope Spring Bean. If IOC container is creating singleton Java class object by accessing private constructor, then the prototype scope will be continued. That means the IOC container creates multiple objects for multiple ctx.getBean method. That means singleton Java class will be broken. Check it out. Component PRN1 scope prototype. How many times I called? Twice. Okay, I'm going to get same hash code or different hash code? Different hash code. Okay. But how? Private constructor is generally not visible outside the class. But IOC container is having capability of using what? Private constructor by using reflection API support or not there. Generally, private constructor of Java class is not visible to outside the Java class. But we can make it accessible using support of what? Reflection API. IOC container uses reflection API internally to access private constructor of Spring Bean class as part of what? Bean instantiation. As part of what, guys? Bean instantiation. Second one, if we enable static factory method based, if we enable static factory method based instantiation for the prototype scope Spring Bean, whose class is singleton Java class, then the singleton behavior will be continued. Prototype scope does not takes place. Okay, this time you observe, we are in the configuration class. PRN1 is the bean ID, prototype is the scope, but here what is there? Static factory method bean instantiation is enabled or not there. In that situation, multiple times ctx.getBean method, then also you will get the same hash code or not there. Then also you will get the same hash code or not there. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Then lastly, we discussed other day, though it is prototype scope, how to bring the effect of what? Singleton scope. Answer number one, take a singleton Java class, configure it as what? Prototype Spring Bean. Okay. Having by enabling static factory method instantiation. Number two, make prototype scope Spring Bean as dependent to what? Target singleton scope Spring Bean. Don't access dependent bean directly. Always access through target. So indirectly, what's happening? Target, how many objects are created? One. In that one object, how many dependent objects will be created? One. Because only one is there to inject, right? So indirectly, dependent also becoming what? Singleton or not there. Are you getting my point there? Yes, boss. Now let's see, guys. If you don't provide bean ID to Spring Bean class, then what happens? Default bean IDs comes into picture or not there? IOC container is having capability of generating default bean ID. If it is XML driven configuration, the default bean ID is fully qualified class name hash n. First time 0, second time 1, second, third time 3. Fully qualified class name hash 0. Fully qualified class name hash 1. Fully qualified class name hash 2. Are you getting my point there or not there? If you don't provide bean ID to Spring Bean class, then what happens? The IOC container generates default bean IDs to the Spring Bean class based on the approach that we have used to configure the Spring Bean class. If Java class is configured as Spring Bean using what? At the rate component, then the default bean ID is what? Class name having first letter in lowercase. Having simply first letter in what? Lowercase. What letter, guys? First letter in lowercase. Are you getting my point there, guys? If Java class is configured as the Spring Bean using at the rate component, then the default bean ID is class name having first letter in this one. If it is at the rate component, first letter, guys. Okay. If suppose it is be using at the rate bean method, then method name becomes default bean ID. What mean? Method name. If it is XML driven, fully qualified means what? Class name along with the package name. Class name along with the package name. Hash 0. First time 1, because same class configured 2, 3 times. Fully qualified class name hash 0 first time. Fully qualified class name hash 1 second time. Don't worry, we'll see all the things practically. Okay, first of all, you come to this. I'll start with XML, guys. Hey, basically switch it off. Huh? From the beginning, it is not on. Okay, fine then. I thought it's gone. Yeah. Now let's see. SRC, CFZ, application context.xml. Application context.xml. Wish message generator is configured how many times, guys? 2 times. Okay. Twice I have configured or not there. Now it is not about discussion regarding scopes, guys. Let it be. Go to main class. Spring Bean scopes test. Otherwise, I'll change this one to file save as default bean IDs test. What is there? Default bean ID. Hey, let's not do all this stuff. Yeah, there is a mechanism to get the bean IDs count and the bean ID names. Bean ID names, Rababu. Okay. Yeah, tell me. System.out.println bean IDs. Yeah, tell me. CTX dot get definition. Get bean definition names. What is there? Arrays dot to string. What is there, guys? Arrays dot to string. Yeah. Tell me. Default bean ID is a test, guys. Where is this? Run as a Java application. See, guys, wish message generated configured how many times? 2 times. com.nt.sbeans dot wish message generator #0. Wish message generator #1. Did you notice it? I'm saying #n means that one. First time 0, second time 1. Are you getting my point? This is in XML, fully qualified class name, #0, #1. Okay, let it be. Close all this stuff. Spring Bean scopes, guys. Spring Bean scopes test. Okay, come to current application, file, save as. Default bean IDs test. What test, guys? Default bean IDs test. What is that, guys? Default bean IDs test. Here is what? S beans. Here is my vehicle. I don't give any bean ID, guys. I just keep @ component. I'll just keep what? @ component. Okay, that's good. Okay, now go to app config class, guys. Go to app config class. Here also, I'll just keep @bean. I'll just keep @bean. Yeah. Then what happened? Method name becomes what? Default bean. Create date 1 is bean ID. Here create date 2 is bean ID. You can submit that one also to get the bean object if you want. Okay. Now go to default bean IDs test, guys. I don't need all this stuff. Here as usually system.out.println. Tell me. Default bean IDs. What is there? Arrays dot toString. What dot toString, guys? Arrays dot toString. CTX dot bean definition names. CTX dot get bean definition names. Run as Java application. See this? Create date 1. Method name has become default bean IDs or not? When it comes to vehicle, class name having first letter in lowercase. Class name having first letter in lowercase has become default bean ID or not? Sir, why should I believe they are working or not? Wait a minute. Here I will write vehicle. Vehicle V1 is equal to CTX dot get bean. Tell me. Vehicle. Here is my what? Vehicle dot class. Vehicle V1 is equal to CTX dot get bean. Vehicle dot class. Are you getting my point there, guys? Okay. Next one. Sysout. Date D1 is equal to CTX dot get bean. What is there? CTX dot get bean. Create date 1. Date dot class. Date dot class. Yeah. Save this, guys. Saved. Go to this, my dear. Come on. Run as. Where is this? Java application. We are happily getting the default bin IDs based. Access are not there, guys. You can, okay, on the V1 you can call the business method. On D1 you can print the data. Suppose this object is created using this system.out.println. D1 is equal to plus D1. That's good. Tell me. V1 dot journey. What dot journey? V1 dot journey. Start place what? Hyderabad. End place is what? Goa. Start place is this, end place is Goa. Default bean ID is test. We're getting that one or not there. Here business method is going executed or not there. That means we're able to get access to bean object by using what? Default bean IDs. Yeah, what's the final conclusion? In XML driven configuration, fully qualified class name hash 0, hash n starts with 0, right? Is the default bean ID. In annotation driven at the rate component based Spring Bean configuration, class name becomes default. Class name becomes what? Spring be having first letter in lowercase. Having what? First letter in lowercase. Next. Come on, I want reply from you people, guys. Yeah, in at the rate bean based configuration, the method name becomes what? Default without having brackets, guys. Without having brackets. What is the best latest version of Spring Framework, guys? 6.2.8. But right now it is what? 6.5.3 it seems. How much you are using, guys? mvnrepository.com. Spring context support. Click on search. Select this. Six point two point 6.2.10. 6.2.10. Okay. Okay. Tell me. 6.2 point. Compatible with tell me. JDK 11 plus minimum 11 is required. Yeah. What is the latest version of Spring Boot framework, guys? What is the latest version of Spring Boot framework? Yeah, you can see this. Spring, okay, Spring Web Starter. Okay. In Spring Boot, starters jars are called starters, boss. Yeah. Click on it. Click on it. What's the latest version? 3.5.5. 3.5.5. Yeah, tell me. 3.5.5. 3.5.5. Compatible with what, guys? Compatible with JDK 11 plus and what is there? JDK 11 plus and Spring framework. Where is that? 6.2.10. All new projects in Java are happening in Spring Boot 6.x, Spring Boot through 3.2.x. The maintenance projects of Java, the Spring versions are 4.x, 5.x. Similarly, Spring Boot versions are what? Yes, okay, that's good. When should I take Spring Bean scope as what? Prototype scope. If the data of the object is changing time to time, suppose form submission data, I want to keep in what? Spring Bean. So in that situation, we can think about going for what scope, guys? Prototype scope. If the data of Spring Bean is changing time to time, like storing form data to Spring Bean class object, then we need to take what? That Spring Bean as what? Prototype scope Spring Bean. What's the next scope we are discussing, guys? Request. But listen, guys, listen carefully, guys. I cannot show practicals of these scopes. Why? Because these scopes are there working for web application and distributed. As of now, we are developing web applications as standalone application. So I cannot show these scopes until I start working with what? Web application development. What application development, guys? Yeah, the day I develop what? Web application, then we'll go for. Till that time, we'll go for theoretical concepts only, right? And if you try to see also, it won't work. For example, you go to vehicle class, guys, already configured as a Spring Bean. Instead of @scope, I'm giving what? Request. @scope. I'm simply putting what here, guys? Request. Yeah, let's see, guys. Here is my default Bean IDs test run as what is there? Java application. Illegal state exception. No scope resisted for what? Scope name request. No scope resisted for scope name what? Request. Are you getting my point there, guys? No scope resisted for scope name request. Because only in web application it will work. Okay. Yeah. If Spring Bean scope is request, the IOC container and servlet container together keeps the Spring Bean class object inside the request object as request attribute value. That means specific to each request are not there. Specific to each request are not there. Check it out. @component WMG scope request dot set attribute WMG bean ID is becoming attribute name. Bean class object reference is becoming what? Attribute value. Are you getting my point there? Create Spring Bean class object on one per request basis are not there. That means for every request, one new object will be created or not there. For every request, one new object is created or not there, guys. Okay. Creates and keeps Spring Bean class object inside the request object, which is one per request basis. Okay. Now you observe. Web service based distributed application is web application plus plus. Singleton prototype scopes can be used both in what? Standalone web application. Request session application WebSocket scopes can be used only in what? Web application. If you want to store form data or front-end UI of web application or distributed application in the Spring Bean class object, which changes request to request, then prefer keeping what? Spring Bean class object in the request scope. Yeah, now listen. Standalone form is there, then prototype scope. In web application form is there, better to take request scope or not. Using AWT Swing, some core Java concept, I designed a form and form data is submitted to Spring object. Come on. That data, if you want to store, it's better to go for what? Prototype scope. In standalone environment, any form is there. Better to go for what? prototype scope. In web application, if any POM is there, that better to store that data in what, guys? A request scope. Are you getting my point there, guys? Next, what is there? Scope session. This also works only in web application and distributed application. Okay. Servlet container and IOC container together create Spring Bean class object and keeps in what? Session scope as session attribute value. Now, what do you mean by session scope and session attribute value? Specific to each client. Specific to each client. In web application, distributed application, client means browser kind of thing. So specific to each client means each browser of a particular machine. IE browser of machine 1, Netscape Navigator browser of machine 1, specific to each browser. Okay, when should I use this one, sir? I have a username password, login username password. That should be remembered for, specific to each client or not. Gmail username password. As long as that browser and website is communication, they will be remembered. Once you say sign out, they will be forgotten or not. You open another browser, again you have to submit username, password separately or not. They are specific to each requester or they are specific to each client. They are specific to what? Each client. Are you getting my point there, guys? Okay, check it out. At the rate component WMG, scope is what? Session. HTTP session SCS is equal to request dot get session. We are getting access to session object or not there? We are getting access to what object, guys? Session object. Okay, there object is kept as session attribute value or not there? Yeah, this is bean ID, session attribute name, and this is bean class object reference, session attribute value. Comfortable, my dear? Come on, everyone. Keeps the Spring Bean class object reference in the session object as a session attribute value. That means Spring Bean class object is specific to one browser software of client machine or not there. Storing login form data, username, password to Spring Bean needs what? Needs to put Spring Bean session object or not there. Needs to put Spring Bean in session object. So login username password kind of data which is required specific to one session. Array, when I click on login button, session starts. When I click on log out, session end. In between, so many requests will be there. Across these many requests, username password should be remembered and used or not there. So in that situation, if we want to store such username password in Spring Bean, it's better to take scope as what? Session scope. It's better to take scope as what? Session scope. Popular scopes in Java web application, request session application. These are scopes in Java web application. Same scopes are also given in what? Spring are not there, guys. Request scope means specific to each request. Session scope means specific to each client. Application scope means what? Specific to each web application. Specific to each. Same scopes also given in what? Spring, guys. Some scopes also given in what, guys? Spring. Tell me next one. At the rate scope what? Application. What's the next one we are having, guys? At the rate scope application. Are you getting my point there, guys? If Spring Bean state or data is empty or fixed or shareable, then go for what? If Spring Bean state or data is varying state, then go for what? If Spring Bean state data is form data, then go for what? If Spring Bean state data is login username password, then go for what? If Spring Bean state data is common for entire web application, then go for what? Then go for what? Are you getting my point there or not? Are you comfortable, my dear? Come on, everyone. This scope can be used only in web application and RESTful application. What is that? Distributed. IOC container makes the servlet container to keep Spring Bean class object in what? Servlet context object. Are a servlet context object is one per web application or not? Request object one per request. Session object one per client, nothing but browser. Servlet context object is nothing but one per web application. If scope is application mean Spring Bean class object is kept in application object, nothing but servlet context object as is application attribute value are not there. Bean ID becomes attribute name object. Spring Bean object becomes what? Attribute value. IOC container makes the servlet container to keep what? Spring Bean class object in servlet context object as servlet context attribute value or what? Application attribute value, which is one per entire web application, irrespective of what? Number of requests that are coming and irrespective of what? From which browser those are coming. It is one per entire web application, right? Check it out. What is the scope I have taken? Application. Here servlet context object is accessed, guys. And in that one, set attribute or add attribute, double MG, what is there? Bean ID. And this is object reference or not there? Okay. Just a minute. Nowadays, add attribute is deprecated. In that place, what is the method they have given? Set add. Add attribute is deprecated. In that place, what is the one they have given, guys? Set add. SC dot set attribute double MG. Wish message generator class object reference are not there. Super. If you want to store request count, users count of web application. Array, request count, user count is specific to one request? No. Specific to one user? No. It's a common for entire web application. That too, I want to store those details in what? Spring Bean. Then better to take Spring Bean scope as what, guys? Then better to take Spring Bean scope as what, guys? Application scope. Are you getting my point there or not there, guys? Request scope, one per each request. Session scope, one per each browser software of client machine. Application scope, one per web application. Convinced or not, my dear? Yeah, next one, what is there? What is the difference between singleton scope and application scope in what? Web application. Okay, now listen, confusion comes, that's why I'm giving clarity. Singleton scope, only one object. Application scope, one object for entire web application. Yes, both are one na. If I take singleton scope in web application, it is behaving like application scope. No. Difference is there. Check it out. For example, in one web application, I have taken 3 IOC containers. How many? Yeah, in one application, you can create any number of containers. There is a class X I configured as a singleton. How many IOC containers are there? 3 are. You don't believe 3 IOC containers, 3 objects are created for X class. How many objects are created, guys? 3 IOC container. That's why 3 objects are created, guys. Are you getting my point? Yeah. Come on, guys. I want reply, guys. Okay, next. Okay, next. Think in this angle, guys. Think in this angle. One more aspect. What is another aspect is same XBean I configured as an application scope. Application scope means what? With respect to web application, one object. That too by storing the bean object in what? Servlet context object as application attribute value. So though number of containers are 3, 4, does not matter. For entire web application, only one object will be created or not. So final conclusion is singleton scope means per IOC container, per bean ID, per bean class, one object will be created. Application scope means what? Per web application, it will create one object. Are you getting my point then? Why, sir? Singleton object is kept in the internal cache of IOC container. Total, how many IOC containers are there? Three. So three time object will be created and kept in internal cache of three IOC containers or not? Okay. Application scope object is kept in what? A servlet context object, which is one per web application. Though number of IOC container are 3 or 10, but only one object will be created and that will be used again and again or not there. So final conclusion is, okay, singleton scope means per IOC container, per bean ID, per bean class, one object. If web application is having three IOC container, if any bean is configured as what? Singleton scope Spring Bean. Okay, three objects will be created, boss, for that particular Spring Bean class. Same bean is configured as application scope Spring Bean. The IOC container creates what? Only one object and for entire web application. Same thing I kept here in a diagrammatic representation. Check it out. This is my web application now, guys. Total, how many IOC containers are there? Three are there. Okay. Okay. Date class object is configured. Okay. As a singleton. Total, how many objects are created for date class? One here, one here, one here. Total, three objects are created or not? Same date class object is configured as what? Spring Bean having application scope. It is created inside the servlet context object, guys. How many times it is configured, my dear? Only one time. Are you getting my point there? The date class configured as a singleton scope in web application created three objects. Why? Because three IOC containers are there. Same date class that is configured as what? Application scope having only one object, that too inside the servlet context object, right? That too inside the servlet context object. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Yeah. Singleton scope Spring Bean is specific to each IOC container. Application scope Spring Bean is what? Specific to each web application, right? Yes. Single, if we create an IOC container in one web application, then n objects will be created for singleton scope Spring Bean, and only one object will be created for what? Application scope Spring Bean. Comfortable, my dear? @scope WebSocket. What is the next one, guys? Yeah. WebSocket is actually protocol which is coming as emerging as alternate protocol for HTTP. Okay, na? Which is seriously emerging as what? Alternate protocol for what? HTTP. Fine, that's good. Okay, now let us try to understand what is this WebSocket protocol and how it is becoming alternate protocol for what? HTTP. What is the problem with what? HTTP. HTTP support two-way communication, but it is off duplex communication. What is that? What do you mean by off duplex? Off duplex means one way, na? Duplex is there, na? Off duplex means it supports two-way. Browser can talk to server, server can talk to browser, but it will definitely someone has to initiate the communication. That means browser has to initiate the communication, then only communication begins. See, I want data from flipkart.com. First open browser, type flipkart.com, request goes to Flipkart, then response comes. Again, I click on hyperlink. Again, request goes to flipkart.com, then response comes. That means two-way communication is there. Browser is talking to Flipkart, Flipkart is talking to browser. But someone has to initiate the communication or not there. Especially client has to initiate the communication or not there. That's why it is called as what? Off duplex communication. Did you ever seen walkie-talkies? They support two-way communication, but off duplex communication. Why? At a time, only one person can talk, right? Two people can talk, but at a time, one person can talk, right, guys? So two people who are talking over the walkie-talkie. Hello, how are you? Over. Then opposite person says, I am fine. Over. Okay. Where are you now? Over. Okay. I am in some high-tech city area. Over. See, if you observe very carefully, at the end of every statement, they add one word called over, over. Na? Why? To tell that I completed my part, you start speak. Because it supports one side. One person can talk at a time, right? It's basically two people can talk with each other, but at a time, how many people can talk? That is what? Half duplex two-way communication, right, guys? One-way communication totally means what? Only one person can talk. Either client can talk or server. Here, two people can talk, but at a time, how many people can talk? Got it, guys? That is called off duplex communication. Normal phone call, it's a completely full duplex two-way communication or not. Especially when fight happens between person one, person two, boy, girl. Okay. So they continuously talk, na? Without listening to each other, they can continuously talk. Yes or no, na, guys? So that time we can feel the full duplex communication between what? That is there between two people who using regular phone call, right? Yeah. The problem with HTTP is it supports two-way communication, but someone has to initiate the communication. Always client has to initiate the communication. That's the biggest problem that is there or not there, guys. Protocol HTTP is what? Off duplex protocol. It supports two-way communication, but all operation takes place only when client initiates the request. See, request is given, response has come. Again request is given, again response has come. There is no response that comes without request. There is no response that comes without a request. You observe any website. Will you get homepage of flipkart.com without typing flipkart.com in the browser? No. Will you get a homepage without clicking on sign in? Will you get main page without logging in? So everything is happening when you request it, right? Yeah, tell me. The communication between you and me is full duplex or half duplex? Huh? Yeah, definitely half duplex because we are in communication. It's not like that. But I will clarify your doubts only when you initiate the doubt, right? Yes or no? Na? I cannot read your brain what is you are going through. So if you want doubt clarification, you should come to me. Big or small, silly or funny doubt, please come and clarify. Sometimes these small doubts creates big problem in the further programming. Okay. Yes, sometimes I taunt while giving answers. Okay. But by keeping those taunts in mind, don't afraid to clear your doubts. Why? Because I wantedly taunt while giving certain answers. Okay. So that he will not repeat that mistake again. See, if I give answer in a normal manner, you asked a question, I answered. You may forget it or you may ignore the importance of the answer. If I taunt and give answer, you will remember answer for lifetime, right? Yeah. So, yeah, what is this? Request one, response one. Request two, response two. Yeah. Yeah, recently I got one query. Uh, I can share with all the people. I'm in third year, second year, but applying job, but no one is giving interview call letters, right? Fine. You cannot attend interviews of software without graduation. Graduation is the minimum thing. There's only one company who is ready to take diploma and 10th students in software company, that is Joho. There's a company called Joho, but problem with Joho is that is not there in metropolitan cities. Their policy is they run in villages and small towns. That guy is from Tamil Nadu, so for cost cutting and to provide employment to rural sector, he is taking software to the root level. What level? Grassroots level. Towns and villages only is running. But remaining company, remaining graduation is required. No, sir. When I applying, also they are not. See, until you complete fourth year, you have only one option of getting the experience of attending interview. If you clear interview, also you cannot join in the company. So you prepare resume as if you completed engineering by changing dates here and there. You have to change your birth year by 2 years. Everything you have to do it, right? Just attend interview, get the offer letter, and reject the company. And at least you have a satisfaction I rejected company. Yes or no? Na? So once you are ready, maybe first semester completed, then you are very much ready to join in any company. Then use this experience and knowledge and to join in the company. So why I'm telling this one is the people who belongs to second year, third year, trying to give interviews, trying to get the job. The people who are already graduated, who are still having thick skin, still not attending interview. I'm worried about them. Started interviews? Don't wait until you complete Spring Boot microservice totally. You completed core module, keep core module in the resume, go. You completed Spring Boot core module, keep both the modules in resume, go. That will go on, this will go on. For fresher, basic core Java knowledge is sufficient to attend interview. Whether you clear or not, whether you satisfy company requirement or not, that's a secondary. But there is no subject criteria for fresher. But you have to select one domain. To tell that you are into Java domain, you already know core Java, advanced Java. Remaining everything is added advantage. If you keep, they will ask. If you don't keep, they don't ask. Yes. And the people who are planning to show gap as experience, okay, they need to learn till the end of the course. Until you complete Spring Boot MVC, Spring Boot REST, don't dare to apply for job source. Because the minimum expect web application development and distributed application development. The people who are planning to show gap as experience, like 2018-19 passed out, but some gap has come. Those people should complete total course. If possible, once these topics are completed, start going to interview. Okay? Start going to interview. Parallelly, you try to attend a course called JRTP, Java Real Time Project. Parallelly. Okay? That will help you to clear interviews more and more by showing gap as experience. Fresh year, one place, no need of joining JRTP. Only the people who are planning to show gap as experience, they need to join in what? JRTP batch. Yeah. Protocol WebSocket, nothing but debless, is a full duplex protocol. That means it supports what? Two-way communication and server can send data to client without getting request from the client. Without getting request from the client. Yeah, client web application. Request one, response one. Response two, response three. See, response to response three has come without initiating the request. Did you notice that? Response to response three is coming without initiating the request. Did you observe that, my dear? Come on. Everyone. Give me 1 minute, guys. Yeah, tell me. Based on the connection established between client and server for the first request, the server can send multiple responses to client without getting any request from the client, right? See, request one initiated, response one came. Response to response three has come directly from the server without asking for anything or not there. So that is called full duplex communication. What duplex, guys? Anyone can initiate any communication. It's not walkie-talkie, it's like phone call. Once connection is established, anyone can start the conversation, right? Okay. Suitable for chatting applications like Gmail chat, FG chat. In chatting application, what happened? If you ask, if you request, then only I will give reply, or not like that. Anyone can chat anytime, right? In Spring programming, scope is equal to WebSocket or at the rate scope WebSocket makes the IOC container to keep Spring Bean class object in what? WebSocket session that supports what? Full duplex communication. That supports what, guys? Full dup. WebSocket session is there. In that one, Spring Bean object will be kept. Yeah. This also can be used only in what? Web applications and distributed application. Sir, you are not showing practicals of this. I cannot show. Why? Because right now we are not into web application development. After few days only we'll get into web application development, then only we will see, right? Yeah, tell me. What is the pre-instantiation and eager instantiation of what, Spring Bean? Are you getting my point there? Yeah, if IOC container is creating Spring Bean class object, the moment IOC container is created, then it is called what? Pre-instance. No, sir, it is delaying the process as much as it can. Okay, then it is called what? Lazy instantiation of Spring Bean. But only for singleton scope, pre-instantiation is there or not there. For other than singleton scope, Spring instantiation is possible or not possible. They are lazily instantiated Spring Beans, right? Okay, why there is pre-instantiation only for what? Singleton scope Spring Bean. This is another question, guys. I already discussed. Number one, singleton means only on object. If it is preserved also, it can be reused, right? Okay, now, other than singleton, right? What is the next one? Other than singleton means what? Prototype, other one. Only one object will create a lot of objects, will. Lot of. When lot of objects are coming, if you preserve the first object, if you don't use it, it will be wasted or not. Come on, guys. Every day you want to use fresh food. There's no, is there any need of keeping yesterday's food in the fridge? It will be wasted, right? No, you are okay to eat what? Fridge food also. Then what do you do? Prepare one time and use it for multiple times, right? For remaining scope, container is ready to give as many objects as you want. So then, if at all object created through pre-instantiation, that will be wasted. That's the reason they are not entertaining what? Pre-instantiation for other than singleton scope Spring Bean. Check it out. The singleton scope Spring Beans that are having pre-instantiation during IOC container startup will be maintained in internal cache of IOC container, having reusability across the multiple CTX dot get bean method call and across the multiple injection. So the singleton scope spring beans having pre-instantiation because the pre-instantiated objects will be never wasted. Moreover, they will be reused by keeping in the internal cache. The other scope, Spring Bean class objects will not be placed in internal cache of IOC container. That means there is no reusability for those objects because multiple objects will be created for different scenarios. So no pre-instantiation is given for what? Other than singleton scope Spring Bean. For what, guys? Other than singleton scope Spring Bean. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on, everyone. For other than singleton scope Spring Bean. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Yeah, if target singleton scope Spring Bean is having what? Prototype scope Spring Bean as dependent. Can you tell me? Prototype scope Spring Bean participates in pre-instantiation or not? Yes. Come on. Yes or no? Na? Yes. Why? Are target participate in pre-instantiation. Right after pre-instantiation, injection should be completed. That means as part of pre-instantiation only injection should be completed. To complete injection, dependent object is required. But dependent scope is what? Prototype. Originally it should be instantiated lazily. But there is a need of injecting to what? Target. As part of pre-instantiation only. That's why even dependent participates in pre-instantiation are not there. The scope of prototype scope dependent will not be changed to what? Singleton. But the prototype scope Spring Bean participates in what? Instantiation along with pre-instantiation of what? Singleton scope Spring Bean to complete what? Injection process. To simply complete what, guys? Injection process. That's good. How to disable pre-instantiation on what? Singleton scope Spring Bean. Already discussed or not there? Lazy true. Okay, na? Lazy true. Yeah, this is very tricky question everyone should answer. I have 10 spring beans. How can I make only 5 spring beans participating in what? Pre-instantiation. Tell me all permutations and combination. I have 10 spring beans. I want to see only 5 spring beans participating in what? Pre-instantiation. First tell me the raw answer. I have 10 spring beans, but I want to see only 5 spring beans participating in pre-instantiation. Tell me what should I do? Tell me. No, is it? Take all 10 beans as singleton scope spring beans. Okay. But enable lazy true on 5 beans and make sure that these lazy true enabled 5 beans are not dependent to what? Another 5 singleton scope spring beans. Another 5 singleton scope spring beans. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Another 5 singleton scope spring beans. Then what happens, guys? 5 independent beans, no dependency. So 5 only participate in pre-instance. Other 5 does not participate in pre-instance. Take total 10 singleton scope spring beans. In that one, enable what? five beans as what? Singleton scope. Another 5 prototype. Make sure that prototype scope beans are not dependent to what? Singleton scope spring beans. Are you getting my point then? Okay, that's good. That's the one way. Another one. An answer number 1. Answer number 2. 10 beans. In that one, 5 singleton, 5 prototype. Prototype scope beans are not dependent to singleton scope spring bean. This is answer number 1. Answer number 2. All 10 beans singleton scope, but enable lazy true on 5 bean. But make sure that these lazy true 5 beans are not dependent to what? Singleton scope spring beans. Other singleton scope spring bean. Okay, then only we can achieve that one or not there, guys. Answer number 1. Take all 10 spring beans as singleton scope spring bean, but enable lazy true on what? 5 beans. But make sure that these 5 beans are not dependent to what? Other 5 singleton scope spring beans. Answer 2. Take 5 spring beans as singleton scope spring beans and other 5 beans as what? Prototype scope spring beans. But make sure that the prototype scope spring beans are not dependent to what? Singleton scope spring beans. Are you getting my point there or not? Yes. Okay, next discussion is stereotype annotation. What annotation, guys? First, try to understand the meaning of stereotype annotation. Stereotype. Stereotype means what, guys? Same thing, similar things are called stereotype things are not. Generally, I say boys dressing is stereotype dressing. They feel they are wearing a number of things. At the end, they are wearing shirt and trouser, right? But girls dressing is stereotype dressing? No. They have a lot of varieties, right? They can wear what boys can wear and they can wear what they only can wear, right, guys? So variety is more. Okay, while designing dresses for girls, the designer will have a lot of freedom, right? Yes or no? Na? Any new thought, new becomes a new model for them. But boys, very conservative. Something here and there looks like an item boy, right? And for girls, while selecting colors also, they can wear any color in the world. Yes or no? Na? Any color, any combination, fine. It's for them okay. But boys, I think 7 to 8 colors are there. Apart from that, if you wear any other color, again you will become what? Item boy, right? Yeah, that's why girls dressing is what? Non-stereotype dressing. Boys dressing is what? Okay, stereotype means what? Same thing or similar things. Yes or no, na, guys? Now, final conclusion from my side is okay. Thus, annotation that are having similar behavior are called what? Stereotype annotation. There are multiple annotation which can be used to configure Java classes as Spring Beans. There are multiple Spring Beans which can be used to configure what? Java classes as what? Spring Beans. That's why they are called as what? Stereotype annotation. Already component is there. Component is also one kind of stereotype annotation. Check it out. The Spring supplied multiple annotation having similar functionality are called what? Stereotype. That means all these annotations perform what? Similar operation with minor changes. What changes? Boys dressing is called stereotype dressing. Girls dressing is not called stereotype dressing. At the rate component makes the Java class as Spring Bean, boss. At the rate service makes the Java class as Spring Bean come service class. Service class means the class that contains service logic, nothing but business logic. What's the advantage of going for at the rate service? instead of at the rate component. When you go for at the rate service on Spring Bean, number one, it is identified as service class automatically. Readability is good. Number two, business methods will automatically get transaction management support. What do you mean by transaction management support? We can execute the logics by applying do everything or nothing principle. What principle, guys? We can execute the logics by applying what? Do everything or nothing principle. Are you getting my point there? What do you mean by do everything or nothing principle, guys? If complete, complete everything. Otherwise, don't do anything. And in business logic, that is important or not there. Transfer money operation is there. It's a combination of how many operation? Two. Withdraw from source account, deposit into destination. If completed, both should be completed. If one fails, other one should be failed or not. Such facility you want to get automatically, it's better to configure Java class as Spring Bean by just using component by using at the rate service. That means regular Spring Bean come, extra facility will come. At the rate repository configures Java class as Spring Bean come DAO class. What's the advantage of DAO class? The class that contains only persistence logic is called DAO na boss. Data access object class. Purely persistence logic. Nothing else will be there. Such class is called as what? Such class is called as what? DAO. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Yeah. Makes Java class as Spring Bean come DAO class. What's the advantage? Any technology indirectly should use JDBC. If whenever exception raised in JDBC, that will be translated automatically to what? Spring specific exception. That will be translated automatically to what, guys? Spring specific exception. That is taken care by at the rate repository or not? That is taken care by at the rate repository or not there, guys? Next one, guys. At the rate controller. At the rate controller. Are you getting my point there, guys? Okay. At the rate controller makes the Java class as Spring Bean come web controller class having ability to take requests from the clients. Having ability to take what? Requests from the client. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Super, guys. At the rate configuration makes the Java class as Spring Bean come configuration class. Basically, Spring Bean is common behavior. Everything is extra. Controller advice makes the Java class as Spring Bean come advice class to display exception related messages as non-technical messages that is useful. So these are stereotype. At the rate bean is not stereotype annotation because its way of working is different. It is taking object making as Spring Bean. All these are taking class, creating object on their own and making Spring Bean, right? So at the rate functional, at the rate bean functionality is different from these annotations are not there. Because this annotation makes IOC container to load the class to create object, makes it as a Spring Bean. At the rate bean says what? Takes method returned object, make it as Spring Bean. It is a different. Bean is different. It is making Java class as Spring Bean, but it is expecting object from the programmer. And all these are expecting class from the programmer, right? Did you realize that, my dear? Super, guys. So final conclusion is what? The annotation that are there to make Java classes as Spring Bean and providing similar additional features are called as what? Stereotype annotation. Component makes the Java class as Spring Bean. No special service makes the Java class as what? Spring Bean come service class where we can keep business method having business class. At the rate repository makes the Java class as what? Spring Bean come DAO class where we can keep persistence class. At the rate controller makes the Java class as Spring Bean come controller class, which is getting ability to take requests from the clients. Controller may take the request. At the rate configuration makes the Java class as Spring Bean come configuration class using which we can provide inputs to IOC container, right? At the rate controller advice makes the Java class as Spring Bean come advice class using which we can display non-technical error messages whenever exceptions are raised. It is there to handle exception rising situations, guys. In future, we are going to discuss all this stuff. Sir, why these many annotation? At the rate component is enough now. Tell me, in real time, projects are developed keeping every logic in single class or as a layered application, sir? What do you mean by layered application? We try to keep different logics in different layers, na? Different layers means different classes, na? Those classes are having some identity. One class DAO persistence logic, one class service business logic, one class controller monitoring logic, one class client having presentation logic, right? While configuring them as Spring Bean, better to use just a component or better to use special behavior annotations. That's why these annotations are pop. In layered application development, where we keep separate client application, separate controller, separate service class, but separate DAO, having different logics, having communication. It's better to make them as Spring Bean by using a just component by using the special stereotype annotation. Okay, there these are very useful. Anyhow, we develop mini projects as layered application. There we will see the utilization of what? These annotations. Yeah, I give a given clear cut explanation. What is transaction management and other stuff. But interesting is all these annotations are extensions of at the rate component or not. At the rate component. At the rate component. Are you comfortable, my dear? So at the rate component, service repository controller configuration. Are you comfortable, my dear? Come on, everyone. Yeah, tell me. All these are extension. Check it out. It's a layered application. Client application presentation logic, controller class monitoring logic, service class business logic, DAO class persistence logic. Then it is talking to database, right? Yeah, how I'm configuring controller class at the rate controller, service class at the rate service, DAO class at the rate repository. You got the idea? What's the role of these annotations, guys? Come on, guys. So full and final conclusion is what? There are multiple annotation to configure Java class as Spring Bean. But according to the situation, we use the annotation. That is just a Java class acting as Spring Bean. Component is enough. No specialities are required. No, that is also having business logic representing service layer at the rate service. That is having purely persistence logic, okay, at the rate repository. It is having ability to take request and process request at the rate control. You want to use them for exception handling activity at the rate controller advice. Using this, you want to give inputs and instruction to IOC container. Okay, inputs and instruction to IOC container at the rate configuration. Yes or no, na boss? Already we used configuration and component. Remaining annotations I have introduced today. But when are you going to use them practically, sir? Very soon when I develop the layered application. Till that time, all my classes are normal classes acting as a Spring Bean. I can manage with at the rate component or not then. In any Spring project of 100% code-driven configuration, we pass inputs to IOC container by using at the rate configuration or not there. And all these annotations are extension of at the rate component are not there. These annotation make Java class as Spring Bean come special. Come means plus. Come means end. Okay, so Spring Bean comes special classes. Are you getting my point? Yeah, what's the advantage of developing layered application as a Spring application? Very simple. When you make these classes as Spring Bean, injections are possible now, boss. I can inject DAO to service, service to controller by using @auto void. That means what happened? Loading classes, creating object, assigning one object with another object. Everything is taken care by IOC container or not. If I don't use Spring, I have to load class manually. I have to create objects manually. I have to assign one object with another object manually or not there. Sir, why are you assigning one object with another object? A service class wants to call methods of DAO class. For that one service needs DAO class object or not. Controller wants to call methods of service. Service class object is required in controller or not there. If it is a normal core Java or non-Spring application, loading classes, creating object, assigning dependent object to target object should be taken care by whom? Developer. It's a burden to developer or not. If it is a Spring, loading classes, creating object, assigning dependent to target, managing them for long time, is it taken care by whom, guys? I can definitely take that advantage or not. Say something, guys. Fine. So this is launch of what? Stereotype annotations. Yeah. I just introduced. We are going to see them practically in the coming classes, right? Okay, don't worry. What's your batch code, guys? SPBMS, 17th July, right? Spring Core. I think I already uploaded this document. 719. Spring Core. Where is this? 21. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a nice day.